Hello, everyone, and welcome to another issue of Virtually Sunday. I'm Steve Meyer.
And I'm Tony Pickler. And Steve, this week we have a reading from the Gospel according to St. Matthew. I think it's about the, fifth, sixth chapter, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? But it's Jesus calling the first disciples. That's why we know it's fairly early in the Gospel.
He is indeed, and let's look at the context, right? He's among a large number of people. He's looking out. He's thinking to himself, holy cats, this is a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, a lot of need, and he's one person. And he knows he can't be a lone ranger in all of this. And so he knows he's going to need some help. And what really strikes me about that reading is that his heart gets touched. He looks out at this crowd, at this multitude of people, and he's like, they need something. They're needing people.
There, and he understands very clearly that, we can talk about Jesus being God and God being Jesus, and that's all true. But as Jesus, he's also mortal.
Also human.
He's human.
Mm-hmm.
And so for his mission to really have lasting effect, he needs people who will carry his heart forward into the world.
Right. And so I think he looks around and he sees the people who have been traveling with him a bit up to this point, and he sees some gifts there. Like
right.
There's some drawbacks too, I think, in each one of them, probably, like all of us, but some real gifts and talents and strengths that can really lead into his mission.
Right. And that's when he gives us this line we've all heard 1,000 times: the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few.
Right. So when he's looking out at the crowd, at the multitude, it's like, oh my gosh. But think about the potential. Think about the abundance that is out here if we harvest it. But in order to do it, we need some people.
So these are the eyes of Christ. And I like that because so often in our world today, we look at people. We look at the hungry. We look at the homeless. We look at the aging. We look at the sick. We look at all these folks and we see problems.
Yeah.
But that's not what Jesus sees. Jesus sees potential.
We see scarcity. We see, oh my gosh, we don't have enough. He sees abundance.
He does.
Potential.
So he looks at these people and goes, oh my gosh, the harvest, the opportunity for love to come alive and spread and flourish. The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few.
And think about it. He starts just with a few,
Yeah.
The 12, I guess, by tradition, right? And that's what's named in the gospel. But starts with 12, and then from that, the laborers increase and increase and increase.
And it just keeps it turns out to be thousands of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It keeps going forward. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, so what is he asking us to do? And what is the heart with which he's asking us to do it? And maybe that second question is more critical than the first, right? Because we always we always start with this idea, well, what is Jesus asking me to do? When perhaps the question is to start with the same place he did, which is the loving heart.
Right.
What is the heart with which I'm being asked to do it?
So there's a Jesuit priest in the 60s, 70s, 80s. He was a very activist priest.
The golden years, Tony.
Some good years. But his name was Daniel Berrigan, and a friend of Dorothy Day and people like that, Thomas Merton. And he would say to people, you need to go to the third world and have your heart broken open. If you want to be a follower of Christ and you want to do what Christ did, do Christ's work, you need to go to the third world and have your heart broken open, like Jesus' heart was broken open. But by the third world, he doesn't necessarily mean, although it's not a bad place to be either, to go to a developing country and serve the poorest of the poor and have your heart broken open. But it might be without leaving the United States. It might be not leaving your neighborhood or your place of employment or your house. Maybe your heart needs to be broken open right in your own home.
So that's a critical point, because we don't need to start and stop with a geographical reference.
Right.
It can be emotional, it can be functional, it can be spiritual. There are all of these places where love is in short supply or being withheld, that needs someone to break their heart open and pour themselves out and fill that void with the living love of Christ.
And that's the key. Have your heart broken open, because if you don't, I always used to say this to people in ministry formation when I was doing that work back at the diocese. If you're going to be a Teflon minister, a Teflon person doing the work of Christ, or trying to, if nobody's touching your heart, you're probably not really doing the work of Christ. People are going to get to you, and they're going to get to your heart, and they're going to touch you, and hopefully you touch them. And that's how relationship is built.
And we have to recognize that this isn't just the ministerial vocations that we think of, being a minister or being a nurse, or a really caring profession. That this is everyone everywhere.
Every person, business person, firefighter, everybody.
So early in my career, I was touched by two different conversations. I'll try to keep the stories short, but the first one was a group of us. We were quite young, and we were speaking with this one sort of older guy, right? Probably the age I am now.
I was going to say, like you.
Like me. So I wasn't 30 years old yet, I don't think. And he was like the executive vice president of marketing for a very large Fortune 500 company that has since been bought by another larger company. But so he represented at that time what success looked like. And he told us that the only reason to be in business in the first place is to make as much money as possible, right? To maximize profit for your shareholders. And I remember walking away from that conversation as a young man thinking, oh man, I hope that's not true. I really hope that's not true. Right? I hope that there's something about contributing to the world around you, to providing a way for people to support their families, of putting good in the world, to use business and commerce as a way to churn positive impact in the world. And I was really disheartened. But a few years later, I had another conversation with a guy who was the president and CEO of a large company, over 3,000 employees, locations, 5 locations around the world, very, very successful. And he had never once taken a bonus or a dividend from this company. It was family owned. He got it from his dad, and he paid himself a salary, right? But all of the profits of the company went back into growing the business. And I asked him why he hasn't sold. Phenomenally successful, potential for generations of wealth. And he looked at me and said, I cannot imagine a more selfish thing to do. And that really affected me. He said, I can't think of doing anything that would be more selfish than selling this company just so I can get more money. And then he went on to explain that when he has a bad day, he goes to this one window, looks out at the parking lot, sees hundreds of cars, and reminds himself that every one of those cars belongs to somebody who has a spouse, children, aging parents, people who depend on them. And they depend on them to have good employment, stable, well-paying employment to support their family, their household, their parents, whatever it might be. And that's what keeps him going. That's why he does it, to give. And I'm like, that heartened me. Now, who's doing God's work?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. He's definitely doing Christ's work. And that company is really his third world.
That's his third world.
In a sense, his heart has been broken open by the employees that are working for him and with him.
He sees the people, he sees their reality, he sees their trials, and he wants to provide them a way to navigate through it.
And think of if every leader, no matter what field, in this case it was a businessman, but no matter what we're doing, if you could take that into your place of employment or your sphere of influence, and said, I'm going to have my heart broken open by the people I'm working with or living with or whatever, and that's how I'm going to have an effect on people, and they're going to have an effect on me, and that's doing Christ's work.
So the first thing, I'm going to borrow from Simon Sinek here. The first thing is, why are we doing it? Yeah. We're doing it to let love enter us and flow into the world. That's it. And that's not about what we're doing yet or where we're doing it, but that's the first thing. Let your heart be broken open so that love can flow into the world where it's needed. All right. And then Jesus gets into the when and the what. And we, toward the end of the reading of this passage, we get this line, as you go, make this proclamation, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. All right. And then cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, drive out demons. So we get, all right, we've talked about the why, and now we're talking about the when. All right, right now.
Now it's not some future heaven thing.
And then we get to the what.
Right. What I love about that is that it's action driven, right? It's doing the work of Christ. But secondly, it goes right back to the beginning of Jesus's time, his public ministry, where he says, and John even proclaims this before him, the kingdom of God is at hand right now. And how are we going to know it? These amazing things are going to happen. You know, people are going to be healed. People are going to be able to walk. Lepers are going to be cured. And it's not necessarily just about, you know, that, like I know you've said in the past, you know, don't take that too literally, right? Because Jesus' work, Christ's work, happens in lots of different ways. But it's an effect is being done here.
Wherever you see brokenness, and in the passage he's using where people are sick, where they're dying, and we get sick in a lot of ways. Right. We die in a lot of ways. Where people are cleanse the lepers, where people are ostracized, marginalized, right? And drive out demons, where we see darkness and pain in the world. So it's that's what he's saying. That's what you need to do. You need to go where there's brokenness and hurting and pain, and you need to cast it out by letting the love of God flow through you.
Where there's darkness, bring light.
That's it. That's it right there. And then he wraps it up with this challenging,
real challenging ending here. The big closer here.
Without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. Because when we came up, right, we're growing up, right, first introduced to church and Jesus and the whole thing, right? And we're also taught to this idea of heaven and hell. And we're told heaven is the reward that you get for doing all of this good stuff. All right. And so you kind of grow up with this notion of two things. And one, the kingdom comes later. So not after we die, but instead of now. And the second thing is that it's a reward.
Almost like the big bank in the sky, so to speak. Yeah. Like if we can just do as many good things as we can, we put them into that little bank account that we have, by the way, it's all about us. If we can build up enough assets, maybe when we get to the final days, we'll make it.
So if we reverse Jesus' argument, I mean, if we go backwards to the beginning, what he's saying is, if you're doing this only to get to heaven, or you're doing this only for your own gain, then your heart is not in the right place.
You don't have a really good why.
You don't have the good why. You're not doing it with a Christ-like heart. And so get that right first. And then he reminds us, look, there are so many wonderful things in your world, right? You've been given love. You've been shown mercy. You've been given this gift of life. You've been given relationships and laughter and joy and all of this untold goodness.
And it's all gift.
It's all gift.
It's all gift. It's not earned. And to use a more churchy term, it's all grace.
It's all grace. It's just all grace. So without cost, you have received all of this. Likewise, without cost, you are to give it forward.
Right. Speaking of no cost, I'm wondering if we can get a blessing from you to end this.
That's
without cost.
That's it, because what he's telling us is all of God's love is just given to you to enter you and flow through you. So may the unending freedom of Christ's love rain down upon you. May the unending freedom of Christ's love stir the heart within you, and may the unending freedom of Christ's love flow into this world through you. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.